Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, here with a card and envelope using the June 2019 card kit from Simon Says Stamp. So I'm starting with the Leafy frames stamp set and some Neenah Desert Storm cardstock that comes in the kit. I trim this piece down and then I am stamping the circular Leafy frame onto it with some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. And I'm going to leave the stamp in my platform while I do some very simple coloring. I'm using just a couple Prismacolor pencils here. I went through my stash and I was like, ooh, I do have a gold one. So I used a gold one on these two little kind of blooms in the frame, and then I'm just going to use a white pencil on the rest of it. I'm not applying very much pressure, and I'm literally just very light coloring. When it comes to colored pencils, I honestly can't do a whole lot of, when you start applying pressure in the darker areas and everything else. It hurts my hands. I've had borderline carpal tunnel for years and years. And something like this will aggravate it, but really light, simple coloring, no problems. Plus, I just wanted to add that little bit of color, but nothing too intense. Just to give it, you can see just that little bit of something. Now, the reason I left the stamp in is so I could re-stamp it, because when you color with colored pencils over, black stamped images, a lot of times the pencils will cover those lines a bit and will, kind of cloud them, etc. So a nice way to is just either re-stamp it, or you could trace it with a black pen, or sometimes you could also, if you wanted to like re-stamp and heat emboss the lines just to give it that extra something. So I quickly did that. And then while I had my platform out, I also decided to stamp the inside of the bottom of the card, because there's this nice little like kind of border image as well that I thought was really pretty and would just kind of class up the inside. So I have my very simple little panel here with that coloring, and I'm going to add some splatter, of course. This whole card was completely inspired again by Debbie Hughes. She had done, I think it was Hero Arts. If I remember when I'm editing, I'll hopefully be able to link to her post. I remember I saw her cards on, it was either Facebook or Instagram, and I just loved them. I loved, like, it was like black and gold and white and craft, and I was like, yes, love. And it was like stuck in my head. So I used that as inspiration for my card here. So I added some gold splatter, just using my little Gansai Tambi Starry Colors watercolor. Added some water, worked that up really well with my brush, added it to an acrylic block, and then splattered that onto the little panel. And then I added some black splatter with some black soot distress paint. And if you haven't seen my other videos when I talk about distress paint, always make sure to wash off your brushes, your tools, everything with distress paint, because it's permanent. When it dries, it ain't coming off. So I let that all dry, and then I die cut some black cardstock from the kit with just a nested circle die from Simon. You could stamp and emboss and then die cut. I just had because I'd been hacking into the cardstock, I just had this little random scrap. So to make sure everything was centered, I just die cut it first. And then I centered one of the sentiments from the Leafy frame set onto that circle, stamped it with clear embossing ink, and then I'm coating it with Simon's Detail Gold embossing powder. And I'm going to heat emboss this, being very careful because it's small. Don't want to burn my fingers. So I just rotate it, melt half of it, rotate it so I don't burn my fingers. This is also a good time to use reverse tweezers. If you want to keep your fingers away. I'm usually pretty good at not burning myself. I'll end up cutting myself half the time or other dumb things, but I have yet to burn myself. Let's hope I didn't just, tempt fate by saying that. But anywho. I took my card base, I scored it so that I have an A2 card, and this is the same Desert Storm cardstock. And while I have my embossing powder and everything out, I'm going to heat emboss the large scripty word for the inside sentiment. I thought that would just kind of add, bring in that gold onto the inside as well. So same thing, anti-static powder tool, stamp the sentiment with Simon's clear embossing ink, and then I'm going to coat this with that gold embossing powder and then melt this with my heat tool. So I'm going to do that to the inside, and then again, I'm kind of like all over. I was like not doing my normal steps that I usually do in making card. I was kind of jumping back and forth because it's like, oh, I'm heat embossing. So it's like I did the outside and I'm doing the inside, and then I'm going to jump and do the envelope as well. Because I thought, why not? I got my platform out, heat embossing powder's out, and I really love this large rectangle frame as well. And I was like, this will look fabulous on the envelope, because I have this black metallic envelope that came in the kit, and then this frame will look just gorgeous on it. So I didn't center the frame on the envelope. I moved it down a little bit because I want to give it room for postage on the envelope. Plus, if I decide to put my return address on the upper right corner as well. So I, positioned it a little bit lower and then did the same thing. Anti-static powder, stamped the frame with the clear embossing ink. And then I'm going to coat it with this gold embossing powder. And it's just so pretty. So then when I go to write the recipient's address, I'm either going to use a white gel pen or a gold gel pen so that it really, pops. And if I did have, fancy like Christina Werner calligraphy writing skills, I would do that on camera, but I don't. My handwriting is atrocious, so I ain't showing that. So it'll have a pretty frame, it'll have really ugly handwriting, but hey, it's the thought that counts. Anyway, so now I've gone back, I stamped the remaining sentiment on the inside of the card that just says, so it says sending faraway hugs, and I stamped that with the black ink. And then the pattern paper that comes in the kit is it's Carta botanical paper, and there's one that's almost like a craft sort of color with the black polka dots, which is perfect to keep with this kind of theme and like clean and simple-ish sort of look. So I trimmed that down, and I'm going to adhere that to my card base, and I just used a tape runner to adhere this into place. So keeping it a little bit flat because I'm going to pop up the sentiment with some foam tape. So I'm going to adhere the pattern paper with the tape runner onto the front of my card, and then I'm going to adhere the panel that I had stamped and colored and splattered to the pattern paper again with that tape runner. So making sure everything kind of still lines up and that none of it's too, wide, too short, whatever, because some days I swear when I'm eyeballing things, I don't eyeball as good as I used to. So got that adhered into place. And then for the sentiment, I'm using the Big Mama foam tape, which is thinner than standard foam tape. So it's going to pop up the center sentiment just a bit, gives it a little extra something. So apply that foam tape, peel off the backing, and then this will fit perfectly within this circular frame image, which I just love this. I think it's just such a pretty stamp set. You don't have to do a ton of coloring. You don't have to do a bunch of watercoloring, no line, etc. Like you can just stamp it like this and do little to no coloring, or you can stamp it and heat emboss it with metallic embossing powders. Or if you do want to take that extra step, you can do, the coloring. It's just, love. Anywho, last but not least, I had to add a few of these little Nouveau embellishments. These are like the little golden ovals that I just showed in a recent haul video. So I kind of centered those or placed them on my card, and I'm just adhering them into place with little dabs of craft tacky glue, just picking up the embellishments with my little jewel picker. And that just kind of ties everything together with the gold, a little bit of very, very subtle white coloring, craft, black. Yes. So that was my card and envelope for today. As always, I will have links below the video to my blog post. I'll have a supply list with links to everything. So if you are interested in that, you can check that out in the description box below the video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for subscribing, for thumbs upping, for commenting. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.